Hello and welcome. You're watching FYI. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. Now, education and online education. We've been talking about this for the past 2 years now, and especially trying to understand where it works, where it does not. And obviously for India, there are more cons when it comes to it on online education than any sort of incentives coming out of it, because just look at the demographic of the country and look at the reach of technology and internet. That is one for people to understand that. But as we move forward, as schools open, reopen, even in urban centers, like work from home is now and going to be sort of a hybrid model, many are saying that even education moving forward will somehow become a hybrid model. It will start with urban India and should in all if all goes well, really percolate down to rural centers as well. So we thought, let's do a comparison of sorts. Let's try and understand what works when it comes to traditional forms of education and what works when it comes to online. We'll discuss pros and cons of both those styles. And the interesting bit is that we've got teachers for you who represent both the styles as well. So they really understand best what is working and what is not working when it comes to students in India, because that's really our lens at looking at these two forms of education. All right, joining us on the program today, we've got Pankaj Agarwal, founder CEO of Tag Hive. We've got Abrajita Gautam, she's the President, Delhi Parents Association. We've got Aditi Mishra, Director, Principal, DPS Gurugram. And we've got Principal at ITL Public School, Sudha Charya as well. Let me begin with the principals really, because they seem to be at the end of both sides, online or offline. Well, teachers to rahenge, so teachers better tell us how the experience is for them to start with. Let me begin with Aditi Mishra ma'am. Your thoughts firstly on when you see both the formats of schooling, of education, what do you think works? What do you think does not work?
Thank you for the question. When the pandemic started, we had no choice but to go online. I mean, there was nothing else that we could do because we really wanted to reach out to our children. We couldn't imagine children being without schooling or education, as we were, so to say. So for us, the most normal, natural thing was to move online on some platform, whether it was Google or it was Microsoft or it was Zoom, but to reach out to children. It worked, yes, because it kept a connection on between school and children, among children, because we were able to create some kind of program which made children work together while being remotely connected, but doing some projects together, some writing, some dance, music. We've done a lot of things together. But if you were to ask me to jump the gun and say, is this here to stay? Well, I hope not.
Okay.
And the reason is very simple. I mean, I'm sure Sudha will agree with me. It's because the human connect is missing.
Right. I'm very happy and thank you for your honesty, ma'am, for saying it as is really. But since you have made that point, let me go to Pankaj now. Pankaj, first tell us what exactly is it that your company does, and then take us through what is the problem really that you're trying to solve here.
Hi, thanks Sonal for having us. So we are Tag Hive. We are a South Korean company with presence in India, and we have built Class Sathi, which is, as the name says, Sathi. We build assessment platform for students and teachers, and with our system, students can assess themselves on a daily basis very easily. Teachers can use our system to give homeworks, monitor the students' progress, and really help students learn better.
Right.
So
But you just heard the principal there. She's saying, "Oh Lord, don't put this on us again."
See, I think, it's very natural. See, first of all, change is very difficult. For any change to happen, we just want to resist that. So we have been, going through this traditional method of learning from a long time. And I think it's difficult for us to imagine something that is not very common, like online learning. Online learning, in higher education in particular, has been very effective. And it has shown that in higher education in particular, online learning is much more effective than the traditional form of learning, because students have their own choices, they can move at their own pace. Now, because of pandemic, we had to go to online learning for all levels of learning, right? For all the classes. And I think, so we have built technologies for both online classroom learning models and for traditional classroom learning models. And we have found that it is much more effective when we build it for online learning. Reason being, of course, online learning is convenient. You can do it at your own pace. And I think I always ask the question, why do we actually study? What is the purpose of education? The question, the answer perhaps is because we want our students to be future ready. When they get out of the education system, they are able to get a good job, be on their own. So I think one of the core traits of making somebody future ready is to make them independent learners. Don't teach them how to learn, right? So in that sense, I think online learning, while it is difficult to imagine students learning on their own, but if we crack this code, I think online learning can be the next big thing. And it can really, it can really help us leverage the resources very properly. For example, why does a teacher have to teach the same thing again and again every year? You can have teachers.
Pankaj, hold on to that thought, because you've said a lot of things and very fascinating stuff. And I want the teachers to respond to this independent learning. So a couple of takeaways from what you've just said. One, of course, it works better for higher education. It works better for working professionals, for moms at home, etc.
Yes.
So this is a great platform where people who do not have perhaps the time, energy and even money to be on campus can actually get access to education. Nobody is denying that. But specifically for schools and kids in general, you have a fascinating point. You're saying actually how do you make them future ready? And is this one way of sort of paving the way for the future over there? Let me bring in Sudha ma'am on this one. Ma'am, your comments on what Pankaj has just said.
Yeah, when Mr. Pankaj said about independent learner, I am talking about involved learner. When we speak about developmental goals, which we keep ready for the students who are coming to us, the first one is health and well-being. When I am talking about health, it is physical and mental health as well. So well-being, I mean the child has to be self-aware. And second one is effective communication. When I'm talking about effective communication, I'm talking about interpersonal social skills or soft skills. And third one is involved learning or taking care of the whole ecosystem. And all disciplines cannot be delivered effectively through online mode. If I talk to you, physical education, biotechnology, biology, music, home science, fashion studies, these are learning by doing. So when we are talking that we are shifted from what to learn to how to learn, all the more offline education is important, because that group activities, that human interfacing is missing, and children have missed their private space where they can freely express their emotion. If I talk to you about mental health, now children are coming to us. I mean, there is huge amount of isolation, stress, anxiety, depression, all these things. They're so happy to come back to school and enjoying their little game, and they are planning to come up with annual production, enjoying the stage. You know, when a child is going on the stage and speaking something, there is leadership skill. When they are organizing any event, they learn about organizational skill. When we are talking,
you've talked about a lot of interpersonal skills over there, and it's only fair we bring in a parent at that point to give their point of view. And I see Pankaj scratching his head a little about how do we counter that? Well, tech can't solve all problems, but there are some perhaps that can, lead the way over there. Prajita, what are your thoughts on how exactly are kids responding? Have your kids come back to school, and what is their reaction now?
स्कूल्स रीओपन से रिलेटेड अगर आप मुझसे पूछेंगे, दो इट वाज नॉट कंपल्सरी कि स्कूल्स में बच्चों का जाना है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे पेरेंट्स का कंसेंट जरूरी था. बट आवर ऑब्जर्वेशन, स्कूल्स आर प्रेशराइजिंग पेरेंट्स एंड द स्टूडेंट्स कि फिजिकल आप वहां पर जाएं, और फिजिकल इनफैक्ट स्कूल्स में एग्जाम्स भी शुरू हो गए हैं, मिड टर्म एग्जाम्स शुरू हो गए हैं, एंड स्टूडेंट हैव टू अटेंड दी क्लासेस, और जो एग्जाम्स है वो उनको ऑफलाइन देने पड़ते हैं. ये मैं बोलूंगी इट इज एक्चुअली मैंडेटरी कर दिया है. अगर मैं रूल की बात करूं, जो दिल्ली गवर्नमेंट ने ऑर्डर निकाला था, बेस्ड ऑन दैट इट वाज नॉट सपोज टू बी मैंडेटरी और फोर्सफुल कि आप बच्चे को ऑफलाइन क्लास के लिए बुलाएं. और आज जो हमारा टॉपिक है कि जिसमें हम बात कर रहे हैं फ्यूचर ऑफ एजुकेशन, ट्रेडिशनल और ऑनलाइन, तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि गोइंग फॉरवर्ड हमें ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन पे भी ध्यान देना चाहिए, क्योंकि यही वाकई में फ्यूचर है. मैं आपको छोटा सा एग्जांपल देना चाहूंगी अपनी बात पे
जी।
जब हमारा बच्चा बहुत छोटा होता है, 1, 2 महीने 3 महीने का जब बच्चा होता है, आप पास में कोई म्यूजिक लगा दीजिए, वो उस म्यूजिक से भी सीखना शुरू कर देता है। तो हम उस ट्रेडिशनल वे में ट्रेडिशनल टीचिंग को इतना एम्फसिस क्यों कर रहे हैं कि जिसमें आप ये कहते हैं कि ऑनलाइन नहीं चलेगा, ऑफलाइन पे ही फोकस किया जाए। एक और एग्जाम्पल मैं देना चाहूंगी, ऑनलाइन पढ़ाने के लिए बायजूस एक फेमस प्लेटफॉर्म है जो 6th क्लास ऑनवर्ड कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम्स के लिए आपका करवाता है। IIT वगैरह के भी आप देखते हैं। अब आप ये देखिए, वो 6th क्लास बच्चे ऑफलाइन स्टडी स्कूल में करने के बाद बायजूस जैसे प्लेटफॉर्म को चूज करते हैं अपनी फर्दर स्टडी के लिए। एक्चुअली होता है क्या, ऑनलाइन स्टडी में जैसे पंकज जी ने बोला था कि बच्चे का जो डेवलपमेंट होता है वो 360 डिग्री में होता है, और ऑफलाइन एजुकेशन में टीचर उन्हीं बुक से पढ़ाती हैं, जिसको हम लोग जानते हैं।
आप जो बात कह रही हैं, इट्स ऑल्सो पर्सपेक्टिव, एंड आपने बायजूस का नाम लिया, बहुत सारे एक्चुअली अभी प्लेटफॉर्म्स आ गए हैं, एंड ड्यूरिंग द कोर्स ऑफ द पैंडेमिक काफी सारे ऐसे आए हैं जिन्होंने इसके बारे में बात करना शुरू करा। इट इज वेरी हेल्पफुल, बट एट व्हाट स्टेज? I think that's the conversation we need to have right now. A child at what stage will need offline, and at what stage is okay to move online? There are of course lots of things to be discussed on that front as well, but let's slip into a very short break. What we haven't perhaps covered here is that, and just because Aparajita made that point, I just want to highlight over here that Aparajita is of course a mom in Delhi. She can afford a laptop, she can afford internet connection, so she is at the liberty and at the luxury to say that this is okay for a child. If you think about this in a rural background, even just 10 kilometers out of Delhi, you talk to any parent, they'll tell you how difficult these times have been, and more reports are talking about how much this has actually put our rural kids in on the back foot when it comes to education. So of course that's a perspective that we must not forget when we are having this conversation. Quick break. When we come back, we'll try and take this war between offline and online classes forward. Stay tuned. You're watching FYI. Welcome back. We're looking at the different modes of education, which is online and offline, and where does one fare above the other really at this point. So before going on break, I think a good conclusion to draw at this point is that there is a different stage in life where online and offline plays a role. I want to go back to Sudha ma'am at this point to try and understand, some of the pointers that Pankaj has also pointed out on saying how to make our kids, even especially for for higher education over there. There you have to agree in some way that this is a huge bonus. Imagine going to a coaching center and then managing that online, managing not being able to be there actually, not having to waste that time in commuting.
Yeah. I'll just tell you, for school children, Mr. Pankaj was saying that change is always difficult. Here I would differ that teachers are Corona warriors. We did not waste any time, and we really adopted technology very quickly and tried to reach out to the last child. As Aparajita ma'am is saying, because he's privileged to have laptop, to have technology. I have students who are 2-3 siblings, and there is one smartphone. And even when children are coming back, one boy said, ma'am, when you were talking that open your video on and audio on, I could not do that because my younger sister is studying, my grandparents are there, my domestic help, my parents. I did not find that environment so welcoming that I can keep my video on. And so that's the problem. We have to find out that in my school I have got a lot of special needs children. I'll just highlight this point. In the school during severe lockdown, when everything was closed down, parents were requesting, ma'am, please allow my child with the special educator counselor and the class teacher. Otherwise, the learning is completely stopped. We don't know how to handle our children. These children depend on school for their therapies, and so many children from different socio-economic strata, they're coming to us. So they need their one-to-one individual learning. So they were also missing. We are not saying online education versus offline education, nothing like that. Now also we are utilizing it. Saturday, going for support classes. It is very well hybrid and blended. But is this the future long term? I would say for school children, it is not.
All right. Pankaj?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, I completely agree to your points that schools are great places to learn. But I think the world is changing, and we have to be ready to that change. I think online learning is a different ball game, and we have to look at the entire system in a very different way. We have to use technologies properly. Again, talking about schools, you have to actually go to the school, right? So people will say, I don't have a mode of transport to go to school. There can be complaints in n numbers. We have to look at the benefits. So when you look at the benefits, as an engineer, I will tell you, we always look at ROI, or input versus output. So if you look at the education as a subject here, the inputs that we have to give is our time and our money, both of which we can save in an online learning space. And our output is our learning, is our curiosity, is our character formation, is our assessments and all of that. I think that can be done much easily on an online space. So net to net, I think, online learning is much more effective if used well. Again, I understand your concerns that there are students who
may
need
more specifically for younger kids, and you're talking about preliminary school, etc., where, the basics are yet to be established, understanding of the world and stuff is still to be established. What role do you think online plays there?
So I think, online learning, first of all, it brings too many people in one platform. It makes it much easy to have a diversified sort of view. Imagine students studying in one classroom from all over the country, all over the world, right? Your mind opens so much more, right? So that is the benefit that we're looking at here. Of course, logistics wise, we have to train our parents, we have to train our teachers to think of this in a different way, right? Of course, ma'am talked about interactivity, talked about more sort of, social interaction, social sort of component of learning. Totally agree to that. But why does it have to have, right now, for example, my company has folks working in the office, also online, like work from home.
I see.
I've not met so many of my colleagues. I think it's more about how you interact.
Are we ready for that just yet? Is India ready for that just yet? I think that's the question at this point, and a lot of heads are shaking on that note. But I want to go back to Aditi ma'am and this one. When Pankaj said, imagine students from across the globe coming together in one online classroom. And while for Pankaj it's a huge creative idea, for the teachers it's like, oh no. Like, I could just see their heart sink in at that point. Ma'am, last comments from you.
Well, I don't want to take a stand as to which is better.
Yeah.
I think, like I said earlier, it filled a need. Online education was the need of the hour.
Yeah.
And yes, it has its pluses, going forward. Like Sudha is saying, that their child is not feeling well. Maybe he can take an asynchronous class, sitting at home. A teacher is traveling somewhere, she really has to go somewhere, but she can open a laptop and take a class and it can be beamed into, her classroom. But essentially, what are we looking at? I mean, is it only seeking of knowledge or is it education? When we talk of education, we bring in collaboration, we bring in critical thinking, we bring in problem solving, communicating, sharing, caring, learning together. How does that happen in an online space? We find that difference in the past 18 months. There are so many children, like Sudha mentioned, who have just fallen through the gap. We are working separately with them. That had never happened. I mean, I've been in school now for nearly 40 years. But I have not seen children going into depression or anxiety related problems as much as they have over the past 18 months.
Yeah.
In the past, there were problems, but it was always a friend who would give a hug and say, okay, we'll deal with it. It doesn't matter. Let's work at it together.
Right, so there is lots that Pankaj, and since you are the one representing industry, I keep coming back to taking your name, but there is a lot of problems, and especially human interactions, that tech needs to solve at this point. And while I don't see teachers being absolutely averse to it at this point, we do want to know more about how these problems, especially when it comes to personal integration, etc., developing your emotional quotient as well, that we wait to see what tech has to offer on that front. That's all the time I'm afraid we have on FYI today, but this has been a fascinating episode where we got to hear both sides of the story, and we wait to see what sort of hybrid model actually comes out of this. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.